welcome to the Clock and Talk and Arsenal podcast. I'm your host, Tez, and thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. You can follow us at clockand_talk. Each and every week we have Tony with us. How are you, mate?
Just recovering from a hangover, but apart from that, I'm still alive.
Still alive, that's good. Grand National, mate, how'd you go there?
Yeah, I know a lot of people aren't fond of the race because there's so many horses, but anything that pays my mortgage suits me.
Nice. And Schwinn touring around the place. I'm not real sure where Schwinn is at the moment, but how are you, mate?
I'm pretty good. Coming from Milan right now. I am on my way back to South Africa, so it's just for today that I'm here. But otherwise, all good. Things could be better, of course, on the Arsenal front, but we'll get into it and talk about that for sure.
Jeez, this bloke has a fucking good life, doesn't he? Just touring around, posting pictures, back alley of Italy.
Yeah, that was earlier today. I got up a little earlier just so that I can get some more of the city absorbed in before I head out. So not a whole lot else.
Okay, Tony, I'll just touch quickly, mate. We've got a competition running.
Yeah, so anyone that follows us on Twitter will have seen that I regularly, or all of us regularly, retweet drawings from a guy called Charlie Shanks. He draws a lot of boxers, but also Arsenal players and football figures in general. He's donated a picture he drew of Mesut Ozil after Ozil got his 50th assist for Arsenal. So we are running a competition to win that to one of our followers or listeners. If you want to follow Charlie, it's at Char, CHARDA, Shanks, SHANKS, and then I. So at Char the Shanksy. In order to get into the competition, we are looking to be nominated for a football blogging award. So you have to follow Charlie and also vote for us in the podcast category of the Football Blogging Awards. We will choose the winner from someone who has done both of them things.
Yeah, you can do that online at footballbloggingawards.co.uk. Now, I have to thank Steve-O at Footy In It.
Footy In It.
Yeah, Steve-O, thanks, mate, for bringing all this to our attention, because being nominated for a Football Blogging Award was something that we never thought that we'd ever do. So I'm really appreciate that our followers and listeners are going, hey, guys, I'm going to nominate you for this award. So, look, thanks, mate, and thank you, everybody who's voted there. You can also cut and copy. We've been sending out the tweets. You can cut and copy, and it's a hashtag and whatnot. But we are thinking the podcast category, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably the one. So, no, thanks, Steve-O, and thank you, everybody, for voting. Okay, let's get into it, guys. Fucking Jesus. Newcastle United. 2-1. Not a game that I didn't think we'd lose, to be honest. So, but let's get into the lineup, Tony.
I mean, we spoke last week, and I thought it was a very hard lineup to pick, just because, as I said, we have to look at our games in bunches of threes now that start and end with Europa League games, and that is obviously priority. It can't fully chuck away the games, and players will still need minutes. So you'll find first-team players playing in some of the games and not in others. So obviously, Ozil, Ramsey, Hector were probably the main absentees yesterday. You'll probably find that they'll play against West Ham next week to get minutes before Atletico, and then probably miss out against Man United the game after that. So the lineup, it's a very hard one to call. I know Schwinn thought Chambers would play at right back, and he was correct. Mustafi seems to play every week, whether they, obviously because Koscielny's not fit enough to, and they want to play at least one of the centre-backs, it kind of makes sense for Mustafi to stay in, despite his level of performance. In terms of the rest of the team, maybe a bit shocked that Willock played, but then looking at it, I don't know who else I would have played. Apart from that, it's not, I don't know, as I said, it's a hard one to pick, so I can't say I was either pleased or disappointed with the lineup. in terms of what did annoy me quite a bit is Arsenal tweeted out, like, I don't know, it's a marketing team and it's nothing to do with anyone that picks a team, but they go, oh, you've been calling for it, so now you've got it. Lacazette and Aubameyang starting together. But I don't think anyone, or no one I know, has been calling for them to start together if Aubameyang's going to be playing on the left wing or if Lacazette's going to be playing on the left wing. People want to see two up top. So I just think, as I said, I know it's nothing to do with selection, but it just annoyed me that it was like, oh, we're giving you what you want. And it's like, no, that's not what we want. It's like, yes, we want them two players on the pitch, but we want them up top together. There's no point saying we're giving you what you want, but one of them's playing in goal and the other one's playing left back. It's like, I thought it was just stupid. I thought it was poor PR more than anything. I'm not blaming Wenger or blaming anyone at the club. It's a PR team, but I just thought it was a bit of a kick in the face, really.
It's funny, though, how football social accounts have almost try to get in. I don't know whether it's the 21st century you call it, but they've almost revamped themselves to try and be a little bit funny, try a little bit, like a marketing ploy, PR ploy, or whatever it is. And you see Roma do it with and the amount of football social accounts that I've seen taking the piss out of Harry Kane over the weekend. With his must have been Kane who scored that goal. I think it's probably one that Arsenal, with the Lacazette Aubameyang thing, I don't think they got that right at all.
No, neither do I. And in terms, I get what you mean about the social accounts trying to be funny, but that gets attention. Like, no, obviously Roma are a massive club, but I would never have seen their Twitter, even as a huge football fan. I'm not going to go on at Roma or whatever it is, but because of their funny stuff, it's come to a new audience, and now I have seen it, and I won't be the only one that's only seen it because of that. So I understand that it does build reach by being a little bit funny, but that Arsenal tweet wasn't funny. Like it just, as I said, it was a bit like, well, yeah, you wanted to see them together, and now you are, but that's not. As I said, we wanted to see them together up top, or the vast majority of fans. I don't want to be speaking for anyone else, but I don't know anyone that says I'd love to see them two start, but one of them on the left wing and the other one up front.
Schwinn, what was your take on it all, mate?
I mean, apart from whatever Tony said, I just want to highlight that this was probably not the right game to give someone like Willock their Premier League debut. I mean, yes, Newcastle are not essentially, a good team at the moment. They are 10th, and they have just come up from the Championship this past season, but they haven't conceded a goal at home since January, and they've been decent at home. I mean, St. James's Park is always a tough place to visit. The fans are always up for it, and I understand the need for rotation, but I think we rotated a bit too heavily. I don't understand why Mesut Ozil was not featuring. I don't understand why Hector Bellerin didn't feature. I would have rather given them a rest for West Ham as opposed to resting them for Newcastle. But if the result had gone the other way, then we probably wouldn't have argued this. And I think the result could have gone the other way if it hadn't been for a couple of really stupid mistakes, which we'll definitely get onto. So we didn't we didn't have a lot of incision. We didn't have a lot of attacking prowess, but we almost had them on the ropes, especially if Calvin Chambers had buried that chance that fell to him after we scored the first goal. And the complexion of the game would have been very different. So I keep coming back to the fact that this was not the right game for Willock, and we lacked a little bit of that attacking edge, especially once we conceded those two goals. We were very, very flat.
So Bellerin, is he injured?
I don't think so. I think it was just regular rotation, just to. Yeah.
So Bellerin, Ramsey, Jack, they were obviously. I'm not sure what Ramsey, his big injury last week, with his staples. But so Jack.
Well, Ramsey and Jack didn't train a day before the team traveled.
Okay.
And Arsene said after the game in the press conference that he couldn't have any contact. So it obviously made sense for him to rest Ramsey. As for Jack, our listeners will remember that Tony mentioned that for the game against Southampton, he had a lot of padding around his knees. And, of course, he didn't seem very fit for the game against Moscow away. So, it, again, could have been a precaution. That's what I like to think, at least for now. But if there's anything going on behind the scenes, then it's not been reported yet.
Okay, just writing down Voldemort. Right, done. So Klasinac, he didn't feature either, but he was on the bench, and Mertesacker was also on the bench, which I found interesting. I wouldn't have minded Mertesacker getting a run at some stage, but it wasn't to be. Tony, what was your take on any of that?
Well, I said after we played Forest when we went out of the FA Cup that Mertesacker would never play for Arsenal again. It was a belief of mine. I still stand by that. I think if we potentially get to the final and he wants to rest absolutely everyone, then there could be a chance that Mertesacker gets the last game of the season or something along those lines. But in reality, he's not really there as a player anymore. His time's up. He was also on the bench in Moscow, which was maybe more surprising because I think yesterday, obviously, when you've got Chambers and Holding starting and Koscielny's not travelled, then we have no other centre-back. So it kind of made sense for him to be on the bench. But out there in Moscow, I was a bit surprised he was on the bench because obviously Chambers and Rob Holding were available. But then I think we didn't have the numbers attacking-wise to have on the bench, so they just put pretty much any first-team player they could on the bench. In terms of Kolasinac, I was really surprised he didn't play yesterday, in all honesty. Nacho's not getting any younger. He played 90 in Moscow. Kolasinac hasn't played for a while from memory. I can't remember the last time he started. So I thought it would just be an ideal opportunity to get a run out. But as I said, if you look at these games in pairs between yesterday and West Ham next week, I would be amazed if we don't see Kolasinac next week. I would be really, really surprised.
Yeah, he's got to come. I just and mate, you know the guy's name, the Greek defender.
Mavropanos.
Yeah, and excuse my ignorance there. I just have not learned it. But he doesn't seem to be featuring anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen next to nothing of him. I don't go to the under-21 or the under-23 games. So I don't know what level he's at. But I've seen a lot of fans calling in for him to start, and maybe they've seen a hell of a lot more than I have. Or, I don't know, I think with Arsenal fans, sometimes we're very ignorant that, well, anything is better. So, I mean, we saw it earlier in the season that despite Maitland-Niles not played a minute at that time as a centre midfielder for us, everyone was saying that he should be our starting midfielder and Xhaka should be dropped. And obviously at that time, El Neni wasn't doing well either. So it was Maitland-Niles should be ahead of El Neni and Xhaka. At the moment, them two are probably the two flavours of the month. And if you said to someone now, I would start Maitland-Niles ahead of both of them, they'd think you're a moron. But that's what people were saying 6 weeks ago based on never seeing Maitland-Niles in centre midfield for Arsenal. And I think, I could be wrong because, as I said, I've not seen a lot of it. But I think all this stuff with Mavropanos is they're not happy with what's going on with our defenders. And they've just sort of gone, well, anything must be better. And at this time, he is the anything else.
That's the option. That's why I brought it up, because I have seen a lot of Arsenal fans, or a few Arsenal fans, on social mentioning it. And I thought, well, if somebody's seen something that I haven't seen, because I know nothing about the kids. So. Okay, so we get into 14th minute and we see Schwinn Lacazette scores a beautiful goal with a Aubameyang assist, mate.
Very good goal. And I mean, I think this is going to be the only moment today that we are going to praise Mustafi, but it was a very good ball as well from Mustafi to find Aubameyang. Who did very, very well to bring the ball down, I think, with, I think it was Lejeune who was on him. So he did a very good job to bring the ball down, and a very, very instinctual pass into the box. Lacazette was roaming around the penalty spot at that moment, so he was nowhere close to the 6-yard box. But he made a very good dart and acrobatically finished the goal. I was not expecting him to finish that, but you know, he's a little short old, so if you flip the players around, then you would probably say that, okay, Aubameyang could stretch and get a finish on it. But I was happy to see Lacazette back the goal and get us some momentum going into the game. But of course, we all know how things turned out from there.
I will ask, though, because you've been pretty critical of Mustafi. Well, not so much critical, but you've mentioned him a little bit in the tweets that I've noticed today. But that ball.
Well, I was in a train and I had nothing better to do. Not that I'm backtracking, but hit me with it.
That ball to Aubameyang was like, I thought it was a really good ball.
Yeah, decent ball, and you would expect a ball-playing center back, which is now what Mustafi has become. I mean, when the season started, we had Mustafi playing as a left center back and Koscielny on the right, and it would be Koscielny who would progress forward with the ball if our midfielders were unavailable. But of course, with Koscielny's Achilles, he's now taken up the left spot, and Mustafi has become the one who plays the ball. I mean, credit where credit is due, and Mustafi has the vision to find those passes. The problem is he'll try 10 of those and only one of them will come off. And when it does, then of course, it pays some dividends. But of course, I mean, I don't need to, go into specifics about the blunders he committed yesterday. So,
I will
that one moment was good.
We will come into that shortly because I'm going to, you can go through all them later. Tony, then it just went to shit. I don't know. Newcastle scored the 29th minute. We had half time, and then 68th minute they score again, and 2-1 was the score. Let's start with the first goal. Newcastle, I suppose. Who's at fault there? There was some, Newcastle playing some lovely long balls on the counter.
I mean, for me, it annoyed me because it's not like we had a warning 10 seconds before. Well, not 10 seconds, probably a couple of minutes before.
Yeah.
Dwight Gale literally made the exact same run and nearly got in. And Dwight Gale's not the quickest. He's very sharp and he's very clever with his movement, but he's not the quickest. And when they've let that ball go through, like literally 2 minutes before, you'd think, okay, we need to sort that out. And then the exact same ball goes through later and they're still clueless. Also, I don't know what people's opinions are on this. I think Cech has to do a hell of a lot better with that goal. I think it's a brilliant finish by Jose Perez. But because of the body positioning of Mustafi, the ball could only go in one side of the goal. So I know people say, you shouldn't get beat at your near post, which I think is a bit of a fallacy, because if you cover your near post too much, then the other side of the goal is open. But when the ball can only go in that side of the goal, I don't think you should ever be beaten there, unless it rockets in the top corner or comes off the bar or the post and the angle's brilliant. But for me, I've not seen many people say this. I've seen a couple, but for me, straight away, I just thought that was the only place the ball could go. So as a keeper, you should know that, well, if I stop the place the ball can go, he can't score.
Yeah, I don't want... Look, it was at that point, I would probably agree with you and blame Cech, but I don't want to criticise I think it was Willock, and I hate criticising young kids on their first game, but in the Premier League. But I think that ball should have been stopped prior to even getting to that position to start with. Was it Willock?
I don't know. I don't know who it was, but there's 10 to 15 seconds between that and the ball going in the net. So there's at least 4 or 5 other players that have had a chance to do something about it. And I think, as you said, putting the blame on someone for anyone, even if it's not a kid, even if it was Iwobi or Lacazette or Aubameyang, I don't think you can put the blame on someone for something that happened 10 to 15 seconds before a goal when so many other people have had a chance, so many other players, have had a chance to do something about it. If we match that run better, if we get tighter to the cross then goes through, I think it was Monreal's legs, it goes through some Holding's legs, which is unlucky, but it means that Holding could have got closer and maybe stopped it. And then Mustafi again let his man get across him. It wasn't as bad a mistake as Southampton last week, but he still wasn't. Usually he attacks the ball very strongly, but in that instance he didn't. And then, as I said with Cech, the ball's gone in the only place it could go. So I think it'd be very harsh to blame, not just because it's Willock on his Premier League debut, but anyone who's made a slight error 15 seconds before a goal's gone in, when everyone else, well, not everyone else, but when there's a lot more senior players have had a chance to do something about it.
I stand corrected if it wasn't Willock, but I'm not blaming the kid, but I just, but in that time frame between the 29th minute and the 68th minute, and I haven't got the actual when it happened, but Chambers, I'm sure he had about 2 chances in that time frame too.
Yeah, Chambers had a big one where Aubameyang hit a free kick in the wall, and then Xhaka came back out to Xhaka, who played it back post, and Monreal headed it across. And I watched the highlights package this morning, and they said, sort of Chambers really should have scored. It was an easy chance. I don't think it was because he was on the stretch. I think it's one of them, if it goes in, you say good finish. I think sometimes we either go a chance is easy or difficult, and we don't really see in between. It probably should have done better, but it's not like a gilt-edged chance. I mean, I've heard people talking about it the way they spoke about Welbeck's last week against Southampton that he missed. And for me, it's not in that category. And then the other chance you're referring to was Lacazette, I believe it was, won the ball off a player, and we was 3-on-2. And he played it into Willock, who completely messed his feet up.
Completely missed it, and it went straight through. And Aubameyang was trying to get there, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And there was one earlier where I was screaming and at the TV, Iwobi, he had the ball and he went in, he went out, he dribbled, and I'm going, just fucking hit it. But
yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I turned and said to my mate, like, he just takes too many touches in the box. I know exactly what you mean. One thing we've kind of skipped over, and I'm interested to hear what you two think. Obviously, you've seen it differently to me because I was in row 4 million in the ground. Do you think it was a penalty, the Aubameyang shot?
The Aubameyang.
For me, yes. For me, it was.
Yes.
It has to be. I mean, even though the defender is, trying to get his leg up to try and block it, his arm should not be where they are, and there was a massive deflection on the ball. So, you're denying a goal scoring opportunity in a way, and there's enough distance between the defender and the ball where the ball to hand argument, I think, is redundant. So for me, it was. I mean, I don't want to say it was 100% penalty because that's just the way penalties are these days, but I think it was definitely something that should have been considered by the ref, and I think it was just completely waved off.
So I came out of the ground and I saw on Twitter people saying 100% it should have been a penalty, and I honestly didn't know what they was talking about. There was no real appeal in the ground. Again, as I said, I've watched the highlights package this morning, and Aubameyang half appealed, but it just looked like he was asking for a corner, really. And Lacazette appealed quite strongly, but from a distance. No other Arsenal players appealed. Having seen it back, I think it's a clear penalty, but no one in the ground even considered it. And as I said, I didn't know what people were talking about when I was looking on Twitter saying, we should have had a penalty that would have made it 2-0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It should have been a penalty. Okay,
just quickly, Taz, before we go ahead, I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to say I think you raised a good point about Willock. Although I agree with Tony that there was enough time that passed, I think the amount of times that long ball was played was criminal. They kept trying to hit that, and every time it would meet with one of their players. Again, it's not about Willock, but it's about someone taking the responsibility of closing Shelby down because he was their catalyst. And I think that's a very valid point that you brought up. But as for the goal, of course, Czech has to do better, but so does El Neni because he just lets Jose Perez waltz into the box. And I also watched the highlights package earlier today, and El Neni actually looks back and sees Perez walking into the box. Again, it's about that degree of separation. Where do you draw the line? Is it Willock? Is it El Neni? Is it Mustafi? Or is it Czech? Maybe even Monreal because he let the cross come into the box. But I think as a collective, when the ball is so close to your goal, you have to do better. And I think El Neni just sort of switched off for a moment there.
Yeah, and the only reason I've gone back that far is because 3 minutes before, they did, it might have been 5 minutes before, they did exactly the same play. And I think me and you were talking on Twitter, and I said, and you said, fuck these, or it might have been the WhatsApp thing, and we're going, fuck, that fucking these long balls are looking dangerous. And then 5 minutes later, they fucking score off one. I think, at what point didn't you know that was going to happen? That was obviously what the tactics were.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it 3 minutes before and 3 minutes every time out from there. That was their go-to move. And it just seemed amateur to not recognize that from anyone in midfield. You expect someone like Granit Xhaka or El Neni to tell Iwobi or to tell Aubameyang or Willock to do better. Lacazette likes to drop deeper. Maybe he should be the one who is flustering Shelby, but we just let him enjoy so much time on the ball. And he loves picking those passes out. So, it just seemed like we didn't recognize that at all.
Now, I want to touch on our mids with obviously Willock, Xhaka, El Neni, and Tony. I'll get both your thoughts on this. I noticed obviously Xhaka was dropped back in the mids and El Neni was played up a little bit higher. Do you think it should have been switched where Xhaka was up a little bit higher and El Neni dropped back a little bit in defence?
I think the issue if you do that is you lose El Neni's energy, which is, in my opinion, his biggest asset. So if he goes running forward and gets ahead of Xhaka, which with his energy you'd probably expect him to do, it leaves us exposed at the back. Whereas Xhaka's quite stable in that he stays quite deep. He's very rarely ahead of the ball. And also, his range of passing is better. So if you get someone collecting the ball off the centre backs, you prefer it to be him because he has a better range of passing. Whereas if he's 15 yards further up the pitch than El Neni, then you get the ball into El Neni in the centre midfield, but the range of passing isn't as good, and it's kind of slows things down. But I mean, my problem as soon as I saw that 3, and I've made this comment so many times before on here that whenever we're missing Ozil, we just have no creativity from midfield. Nothing against Willock, El Neni or Xhaka, but that's not particularly what any of them do. I mean, at any given time, we've got, whether it be an Ozil or Ramsey or Voldemort, that will pass the ball forward. So Xhaka gets it, and the next line of attack ahead of him will be Ramsey, the 3 players I just mentioned. But without that, there's just nothing there. There was no one that was going to give service to the strikers or to the 3 attackers. I remember when we played West Ham in the Carabao Cup quarter final, we won 1-0. The midfield 3 that day was El Neni, Willock, and Coquelin, and I said exactly the same then. That it was just you couldn't see how we was going to get an assist. If that makes sense.
I know what you're saying, and that's why I asked the question, because I thought. That line of, we know El Neni, he'll pass the ball back and forth around like a ping pong ball, but it's that next phase of play where I thought maybe Xhaka could have got them nice balls, because he did get a nice one up over there at one stage, I think, to Aubameyang it might have been, and I mean Schwinn was saying there's a trademark Xhaka pass there, but it was that next phase that I thought maybe Xhaka could have been used better there. That's why I mean,
for me, Xhaka's better. His passing is very good, but it's not the little intricate passes that you see from Ozil that slide someone in. Yeah. It's like balls over the top, and to do that, you need distance. There's no use him being 30 yards out, because that only gives him actually 10 yards to pass the ball, because if it's too deep, the keeper's going to come and collect it and whatnot. You need him a little bit deeper to give him space to put in that range of to get them passes in. I think he's better suited passing from deep and too far forward. It kills him, because they're not the type of passes he does, the little through balls. It's not like he has unbelievable vision. I think he's got quite good execution. So he sees a ball that most others would see, but plays it better than most others would. Whereas, say, someone like Ozil, they see things that others don't. And I don't think that's Xhaka's skill set.
Yeah. Schwinn, you got anything on that? Yeah.
I'll just echo Tony's point there, because apart from what Tony mentioned, I think Xhaka is also a little weak when it comes to playing with your back towards goal. I think El Neni's a little better than Granit at those quick one-touch pass around the corner and then bomb into the box. Plus, El Neni is not as composed as Xhaka. If you remember, deep into the second half, there was a moment where the ball hit the crossbar because Mustafi got a block on, I think it was against Kennedy, and the ball landed at Xhaka's feet in the 6-yard box almost. And he was very calm with 2 players almost converging at him, and he played a simple ball, right outside the box, and we had a chance to counter. In those moments, you want Granit Xhaka closer to the goal than El Neni. And I agree with Tony completely that that's Xhaka's position, and we shouldn't do a whole lot to try and move him around because he's just found form over the last couple of weeks, and a couple of months rather. And we should let him enjoy this, even when the team around him is not really performing to the level we need them to.
I agree with you two on the point, but I agree with it to a point if Ramsey is beside him, Jack's on the field, or Ozil's on the field. To a point on, well, and you got El Neni and Willock. And that's where I think we struggle. I don't want to. I don't want to fucking get the haters going, I hate El Neni, because I seriously don't hate El Neni. But when I look at that midfield, I think El Neni and Willock, and once again, I don't want to criticise a young bloke for his first game. I think good on that we've used the young bloke, but Xhaka, El Neni, Willock we're always going to struggle. To get the balls out to Lacazette, Aubameyang, and then Iwobi, it's not a good fucking team, but lads, I don't know. It makes sense.
No, sorry, I'm going to butt in real quick because it's not, and it's been set up very poor. I mean, Tony has spoken time and again about how bad Iwobi is on the right. I mean, I don't understand us playing him on the right again and again. And, we had something there in the form of playing two strikers, and we didn't play them as two strikers, as Tony spoke about earlier. It's just so maddening that, okay, you want to rotate a little bit, but then at least, change the team to suit the players you're going to play. If you're gonna just discard the game and the league at this moment, at least try something new for the next season. Give Aubameyang and Lacazette a chance to play up top, so that maybe we can use that in the next season. But there seems to be this restriction, this self-imposed restriction, and I'll let Tony take it from here. But seeing Iwobi on the right was just so maddening for me, at least. I don't know what you guys think about it.
Me too, mate. But yeah, you go, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start off by saying I don't think Iwobi was awful. I don't think he was anywhere near one of our worst players. So this is not me bashing Iwobi for the sake of bashing Iwobi. But he just can't play on the right. He's much better on the left than he is. He's better in the middle than he is on the right. I think it was square pegs and round holes that Aubameyang can either play up front or on the left. So if he plays Iwobi on the left, then you've got Aubameyang on the right where he can't play. You're not going to play Aubameyang as a 10. We didn't really play a 10, but you're not going to play Aubameyang as a 10. So it's just sort of like, well, Lacazette, you play up front. Aubameyang, you can sort of half play on the left. You're comfortable there. Iwobi, you've played on the right before, so you can go there. But it didn't actually suit anyone, apart from, Lacazette was probably the only player that played in what you would say is his natural position of the front three. I think Willock was probably made to push on a bit more than he would like to. So again, you can say he's a centre midfielder, but he was probably sort of charged with the duties of being a bit like a 10, and that's not what he does. So he was probably a bit not uncomfortable, but playing in a slightly unfamiliar, not position but role. So it was just literally just put players on the pitch and hope, really. As much as I didn't think Reece Nelson played well last week, at least if he'd have played, he would have been in a position that is his. If he'd have played on the right, he would have been in a position that was his. And then you could have played Iwobi in the 10, where he had his best game of the season last week. And then you still could have played Aubameyang on the left if that's what you wanted to do. I don't advocate it, but for me, that team would have been a hell of a lot stronger with Iwobi at 10, Reece Nelson on the right. And unfortunately, it would have meant dropping Willock. But at least it's playing players in a position where they're comfortable.
Look, I'm fucked if I know what Wenger's doing. I'll be honest, lads. Last week he played Nelson in that other game. He comes in. He's on the bench. Kolasinac, he got on the bench. I look at that team. You've got Aubameyang, Lacazette, Xhaka. You have to say Mustafi, Cech, probably Monreal. Well, I'm not going to say, not world class, but good, decent fucking players. But
they all get into our best team. The players
best we got,
listed.
yeah, they're the best we got, and they're the best. They're our first starting team. I think he's given up on the league. I really do. I think he's just gone, look, I'm going to throw a couple of young blokes. I'm going to partner them up with a couple of, 4 or 5 regular first-team players. I'm going to play Willock this week. Last week I'm going to play Nelson. And we're just going to roll through the league. I think he's given up. Schwinn?
It seems that way, and it's troubling because you don't expect that from him. I mean, you also expect him to take care of the young players, and there's a lot of talk always about introducing young players at the expense of some of our more established, experienced players, and that's fine. But when you are actually thrusting a new player into the mix, you have to take care of them tactically. I mean, again, as I said, I don't think this was the right game for Willock to play. St. James's Park is not an easy place to go to. They hadn't conceded at home since January. And our away form is in the dumps, to say the fucking least. So it just seems all haphazard. It seems as if things have been put together in a rush. And you're right. He's definitely concentrating on the Europa League, and the omissions from yesterday's squad say it all, really.
Tony, if we see a similar team in West Ham, or do you agree now he's given up on the league and Europa League is it?
Look, I don't know what you would class as giving up on the league. I think if you completely give up, you don't play anyone. I think I think you could. I don't know. Mourinho got accused of giving up on the league last season, but he done very similar. He still played some first team players, but mixed it up with squad players. My issue is whether you see it as giving up on the league or not. I mean, I don't really care what label we put on it. But don't just shunt players in for the sake of it. Like, as I said, playing Arobi on the right, where we all know he's not really comfortable. Making Willock play as a sort of 10, where that's not his job. Playing Aubameyang on the left, where it's not really his job. Playing Chambers at right back, where, in all honesty, barring maybe in Milan, he's never ever looked comfortable at right back. If you've given up on the league, all well and good, but it goes back to what Schwinn was saying, that you've got to look after players. So if you've given up on the league, whatever, okay. But don't then mess up players. You could still give up on the league and play Reece Nelson on the right wing, or play Iwobi at 10. So even if you have given up, you're still letting him do his job. You're not messing with him. It literally just baffles me, that the selection. I'm sure he would have a reason for it, but and he maybe would say that Reece Nelson probably wasn't ready for St James's Park. I don't know, but for me, it makes sense to play people in their actual positions where they want to play or they're most comfortable playing, rather than just picking players that can half do a job in that position, but given the choice, they wouldn't really want to do it.
You're down 2-1. You've got, you come on the 86 minute, young Nketiah, yeah, that one. How's he? What's going through his head? Fuck, I'm jumping on the bench, and I'm not even sure when the last time he played for us.
He came on against Brighton, but I think when you're that age, you're just kind of happy to get first team minutes. I mean, Willock tweeted last night that he was buzzing to make his Premier League debut. Sorry to the fans that the result wasn't what we would want or what the players would want. So I think at that age, you're just sort of happy to be involved and get minutes. But the fact is, he's still actually, at no point did we really see Aubameyang and Lacazette together up top. When Welbeck come on, you thought sort of Iwobi may go left and Welbeck right, and then we'd see two up top, but it just sort of didn't really happen. And towards the end, especially when Eddie come on, it kind of just looked like we just had players on the pitch and no one was really doing anything. Like, no one, not doing anything. They didn't know where they was meant to be. It wasn't. I could tell you what formation we played for that last 5 minutes.
No, I couldn't either. And the commentators kept saying, now they've got 4 at front, they've gone all out in attack. And I'm like, what? I can't even see what the fuck we're playing. It was really weird. Like I said, I don't know what our fucking manager's doing. Respect the guy, thank you, mate, but you've lost me, and I'm just confused. Schwinn, you got anything there, mate, or we'll just continue on man of the match for you?
Yeah, I mean, we can go on from here. There's nothing really we can talk about. It's just sad that we lumped bodies forward without a plan. from the very beginning, as Tony mentioned, the problem was zero creativity. And what we try to do in the end, of course, we didn't really have options in the box, but what we could have done is throw Iwobi into a central position and try to get him on the ball a little more, because he was the only one who could have provided that creative spark. But instead, Welbeck takes up a position centrally, and Iwobi continues to be on the right. I mean, as you guys said, there was no idea, there was no clear-cut plan, and it's just lumping boys into a war zone without giving them any sort of backup, and it's sad.
No, it really is. You want to do man of the match and your worst performing player of yesterday, boys? I know it's hard to pick them.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to start off with the worst, just because I think mine's different to everyone else. So looking on Twitter, and obviously Schwinn kind of done a thread on it on how bad Mustafi was.
Yeah.
And he was bad. I'm no way in hell trying to defend him, and everyone will know that I am one of his harshest critics at times. But for me, I think Chambers was the worst player on the pitch. I don't think he done anything right. The amount he gave the ball away, he offers, and again, it's not his fault, but he offers no attacking threat as a right back. We get the ball out wide, and he can't cross, he can't run at a man. It's literally like they don't even bother consider that he's there. They're just like, oh, go on, that's the ball they let you have. Like, oh, we'll press you everywhere else, but we'll let you have that easy ball out to Chambers because we know he isn't going to hurt us. So maybe I'm not blaming him for it, because we know he's not a right back and we know that's not his skill set. But I think his level of performance probably affected us more than anyone else's. That's not to say Mustafi wasn't bad. In terms of best player, I don't know. I don't think anyone deserves the credit to say that they were good. Aubameyang looked bright in sparks. And that's about it. I think every time we looked like we might score, it came from Aubameyang. So I'd have to say him, but I mean, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't tell him he played well.
And just before, for those who are following us on Twitter, Savvy handles our tweets during the match thread, and I think he did say Xhaka was having a brilliant game in the first half. That wasn't Tony. So I just thought I'd clear that up in case you got the blame for that one, mate.
I don't tweet. I'm too busy at matches watching the games, and there's usually no internet, so I don't tweet during games ever.
Yeah. So who'd you say? Aubameyang.
Yeah, but as I said, I wouldn't tell him he played well. I just think that any time we looked like we might score, he was involved.
Yep. Give us your man of the match in. No. Who was your man of the match in total, I suppose? Newcastle. Yeah.
Sorry, dog barking.
Yeah, right. I'll go to Schwinn if you want.
Well, no. My man of the match was Shelby. I thought he pulled the strings. He was allowed to, but you allow him to do it, and he done it well.
Yeah, no, good call. Schwinn, who was your worst, mate?
I mean, for me, it has to be Mustafi. Not just because of the errors, and not just because I'm.
Yeah, I know. I knew it.
But even the second goal, we haven't really spoken about that, and it comes off a throw-in. And Mustafi, I mean, if you see the first action that happens after the throw-in, it's comical. I mean, even calling it, schoolboy defending is wrong, because schoolboys defend better than that. He just heads the ball blindly into the danger zone. Nacho tries to deal with it, but that doesn't work. And because of that, the left side of the field is emptied. And then Jose Perez has an easy flick on for Matt Ritchie. Again, I feel there as well, Petr Cech should have done better. I don't think, it was Ritchie on his weak foot, and Cech, I think, committed before he should have. But again, we spoke about degrees of separation, but as one of the most experienced players in that defensive unit, along with maybe Xhaka, you expect better from Mustafi. You expect him to be organizing. At the beginning of this season, we were almost considering Mustafi as the next captain because of how vocal he was, and he seemed to lost his voice. And apart from that, he's just not performing at the level that we need our starting center back, our only healthy center back that we can bank upon to perform at that level. It's criminal. I mean, to have paid £35 million for him and to have invested in him, it's so sad that he's performing at this level. He's a World Cup winner. I know he didn't play too many games, maybe 2 or 3 appearances during the World Cup, but he's had that experience. He's played in Spain. He has had a small stint in England as well. I don't understand what's tactically stopping him from making the right decisions. And it's just sad to see him perform like this. I mean, this word is coming up again and again today, and it's really sad that the way we performed. I was very distraught yesterday, and I still am.
Who was your best?
Just for the sake of a different answer, I'll say Perez.
Okay. I didn't.
Oh, I had to name a best Arsenal player, so you ain't getting out of that one, mate.
I thought I almost did. I don't think there was anyone who deserves a shout, to be fair. I think Granit Xhaka was decent, sprayed a few balls. Tony mentioned the one that led to a chance for Chambers. And there was a couple of other instances where he was calm and he was tidy. And I think that's the only player who you can say that about actually yesterday. Everyone else was very haphazard and just running around like headless chickens, to be fair.
Yeah, I didn't go on to that other goal because I was so fucking pissed off after the first one. Fuck it, I'm over it. So that's why we didn't go down that path, Schwinn. But no, thanks for wrapping that one up, mate. Tony stole a bit of my thunder because I agree with you, Tony. I thought Chambers was woeful. He didn't do much for me. And it wasn't them two goals that... I think it was two. I'm pretty sure it was two chances. There was another one that I'm sure that he had a chance at, but it may not have been a real good chance. But I don't know. He's so hot and cold, Chambers. Like I think it was last week we were only saying, oh, Chambers had a good game. And then this week he plays like a fucking busted arse.
Well, he did have a good chance, and it was off a corner, Ted. I think that's the one you're talking about, where Xhaka swung in a corner, and Chambers almost had a free header. Wasn't an easy chance.
But no, that might have been that one. Yeah. Jeez, he pumps in fucking corners in, doesn't he? What a player.
Yeah, we can wank off to him later.
Player.
It's all good.
Anyway, no, Chambers. No, actually, I'm not going to say Xhaka was and I know you did, but I'm going to say Aubameyang as well, and I don't want to be copycat and fucking Tony, but I just think when we did have some bit of hope, it did come through Aubameyang. Lacazette, that goal was really good, and it was great to see him get that goal, but Lacazette didn't do much more than me, and I have to say this time, Tony, I don't think they got the service. I don't think it was his fault, but I just don't think the midfield gave our strikers any service whatsoever. Newcastle player, I will go for Perez as well. I think he got the goal, and I think he got an assist as well there. So, now, Tony, I want to touch with you because full time Blue, and nobody come over, or Chambers come over to say thanks for coming down the ground, or thanks for travelling.
Yeah, I mean, this may seem very petty to non-match going fans, but it's just something that's always done. Win, lose or draw, the players tend to come over and little clap, thanks for coming sort of thing. And what always annoys me about it is certain players, they'll come over, and Walcott used to do my head in for it when he was at Arsenal. When we've won, he'll come and clap and stand there for 5 minutes. When we've lost, he'd go down the tunnel or give you one little clap as he's walking away. And again, I know it sounds petty. Even I'm saying it to myself, and it sounds petty. But it's just what you come to expect as a match-going fan. Sort of thanks for your effort. And yesterday, so apparently Lacazette and Aubameyang gave a little clap as they were walking off. I didn't see it, so I don't really want to hammer them too much. But I mean, even if they did, it's not what you expect. Czech came half over and clapped for longer than anyone else, except for Holding, who stood there for a good minute. And clap the fans and sort of thank them for coming. But when fans have made, it's probably a 600-mile round trip or 500-mile round trip, they've spent their money. And I know, look, to the players and what they earn, the money we've spent is insignificant. It's a £30 match ticket plus maybe, I don't know, £50 travel or whatever. £80 to them, they probably earn that in a minute. But for some people, and I'm not really speaking for myself, but for some people, that is a huge amount of their disposable income. And to just feel like you're completely not valued is a bit shit, really. To be honest, I wasn't the most annoyed about it. I was with people that were fuming. They were actually raging about it. And I saw a lot of people moaning about it on Twitter. And And I have to agree with them. I think I was just so disappointed in the performance and whatnot. I kind of didn't let the lack of clapping affect me because, as I said, it does sound petty when you say it. But, I mean, there's some Arsenal fans that were really, really annoyed about it because when you've played that bad, I think the least you can expect or the least you can want is players to come over and sort of just be like, thanks for sticking with us. Because they're all up for getting the... Had we won that game 2-1, all of them would have stayed out. And for me, that's what annoys me personally. That if you can take the credit, you've got to be man enough that when things haven't gone well, to stand in front of the fans. And it's not like we abused them. I was talking to friends yesterday, and the only time I've ever known players come over at the end of a game and get abuse was Crystal Palace away last year, and it was toxic and it was horrible. But in general, when players come over at the end of the game, even if you've lost, and they give you a little clap, you clap back because it's like, thanks for appreciating us. Holding pretty much got a standing ovation because he was the only one that done it. And was Holding brilliant? No. I mean, he wasn't awful, but he wasn't a standout player in the game. I don't think we've just spoke about the game, and I don't think we mentioned his name. But every single Arsenal fan stood up and gave him a clap because he was the only one that sort of really appreciated that we've spent our money, we've taken time out of our day, and that's what we've seen. I'm not surprised people are really annoyed about it, but I know the players probably don't give a fuck. So I've not moaned about it as much as a lot of others have, but I understand why they have.
So I'm just picturing in my head, if you can paint a picture for fans who aren't, or foreign fans, I suppose. So you're at St James Stadium. It's down on the corner. Is it at the end of the field? And there's a gathering of 2,000 Arsenal fans there or something.
So we was behind the goal in the upper tier. So I mean, I get that one semi-excuse the players could have, and I'm not buying it, but you are very, very high at St James's Park. So if they're standing on the pitch and clapping, which they usually do, they're standing in front of a lower tier of the home fans first. But I mean, it doesn't take much to look up and clap, and everyone knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in general, wherever you're sitting in the ground, when you're away. So at home, they tend to do a bit of a lap. Some players do. Some players go straight down the tunnel. But at home, they tend to do a lap and they appreciate the whole ground. At away end, obviously, you're only in a small section of the ground. So the players will tend to come over, look into the crowd, clap for a little bit, and then walk off. And they'll usually get cheered, as I said, regardless of result. Or they'll get a clap back.
Yeah.
But yes, that's just not what happened.
A bit of common courtesy wouldn't go astray, Thanks for coming. Thanks for fun. Bit of a fucking clap. Thanks for travelling,
I think it's just, we've spent however many hours of our day, especially with Newcastle, because it is our furthest away trip in England, that we've spent however many hours of our day getting there and taking the time, and they can't be bothered to spend a minute or 30 seconds to come and clap. It's not like the fans want you to come and sing a song and whatnot. We just want you to acknowledge that we're there.
And considering when you watch us at the Emirates and there's seeing empty seats at the moment, you'd think they'd be happy that some couple of, I don't know how many fans travelled, but you'd think they'd be happy that fans did travel that distance. So.
Well, one of my friends I went to the game with works in sports TV production, and he does a lot of work with the Bundesliga, and he said that that would be like a national story if it happened there. He said like the fans are so important in Germany that it's not only the team's fans would complain, like even the team's rivals fans would be like, no, that's not on. The players can't disrespect fans like that. Yeah, I mean, I know Schwinn was at the Munich game the other day, so I don't know if he saw the players there going to applaud the away fans. I don't know what he saw, but as I said, my friend that works in German football said that like that is just not acceptable in Germany what the Arsenal players done.
What's your thoughts on it all, Schwinn?
I think it's spitting on tradition. And you expect the experienced players to step up and drag some of the youngsters and the newcomers to go there and acknowledge the fans. I mean, I think Tony's been almost a little delicate in that sense. If I was one of those fans, I'd be fuming. It's not an easy journey. It's 500 miles, as Tony said, round trip, and it's a major chunk of your time, and not to mention their money. It's disrespectful to the badge. It's disrespectful to what we stand for as a club, and it's against our values. And credit to Rob Holding for to come up after a tough game where we've been embarrassing to say the least, and at least take some heat if that's what he thought he was going to get, because I wouldn't put it above our fans at this moment, because we have a right to be pissed off with some of these performances. It happened last year at Crystal Palace when our fans made it pretty clear that some of these players don't deserve to wear the badge, and it wouldn't have surprised me if some of those fans made those same feelings heard yesterday. But I think it's really sad that again some of these things are coming up, and none of our players seem to be bothered by any of this.
Just to cut in again quickly, because there's something I forgot to mention. I don't know if you remember earlier in the season, I spoke about it on here that Holding did get a little bit of abuse. Not much. The majority of the fans were still capping, but at Forest in the Cup, Holding got a little bit of abuse.
Yeah, I remember saying that.
But so the only one of the players on that pitch that's had a bad experience was the only one that came over. And I agree. I had this conversation with my friend yesterday. I agree with Schwinn saying that the senior players should be dragging the other players over. And Mertesacker was always very good for that. He always made sure players come over. He publicly had a big row with Ozil about it at Man City away. Obviously, he wasn't on the pitch. I don't feel Holding's got that position in the team or the standing because he is a young player to be dragging people over. And I'm going to mention his name because I have to, but Jack always comes over and claps the fans, and it's another reason why he gets such good grace from especially the match-going fans. I mean, a lot of fans have turned slightly against him recently, but in the stadium there's still never any issues with Jack. And the fans I was with yesterday on Twitter, like my mates, and I was saying, people are sort of turning towards Jack, and they were like, what are you on about? It's still the same at the ground. But it's because he does things like that. And had he been on the pitch, he would have come over, and he does have the standing to be able to drag other people over and tell them that it's not acceptable. And I felt a bit sorry for Holding because he doesn't have the standing to do that. But whenever people wonder why Jack is given that little bit more credit by the match-going fans, and they say because of passion and because of this, it's also, and I know it has nothing to do with football ability, but it's also because he cares about the fans. And you can call that passion, you can call it whatever you want, but being appreciated is always, people are always going to like you if you appreciate.
I don't want to make excuses to the players because, you were at the ground and I get it. I totally get it. But I look at this team, right? Aubameyang, Lacazette, Iwobi, Willock, let's say there's 4 players that they're new faces around, like Aubameyang, they're not real senior players. Xhaka probably should take a bit of a senior role and say, come on, guys, let's get over here. Mustafi as well. Holding, well, you said it yourself, he was the one who went over. Monreal, Chambers, I'm not sure there, and Czech would be the senior amongst the players as well. Is it because there was such a bit of a mismatch of younger players and new faces in the team?
No, not for me. And also, I mean, you say that like Aubameyang and that probably don't have the standing to drag other people over. But Iwobi knows what it's all about. He's been playing for the Arsenal first team for nearly 3 years now. So, I mean, that doesn't wash with me. But if 3 or 4 players are standing there doing it, then the others, even if they can pretend to not know that that's what goes on, if 4 of your teammates are doing it, then you're more likely to join in. No one's going to join in with the one bloke on his own. And as I said, in Germany, it'd be a national story if this happened. So again, even with Aubameyang, that excuse doesn't wash, because if he'd have done that at Dortmund, everyone would be fuming. But as I said, apparently he gave a little half-assed clap as he was walking off. I didn't see it, so I've heard he did, and I don't want to criticise him in case he did, but it still wasn't what you'd expect. In terms of, to be honest, it's usually only the players that finish the match that do it, unless you've had a particularly special result. The subs will come on, but in general, it's only the 11 that finish the match. So I can't really blame players like Chambers and Iwobi and Willock because they all got subbed off. So you can't. As I said, it's not. It wouldn't be normal for the subs to come back on, as I said, unless something unique has happened.
Welbeck should know better.
Welbeck should go. You'd think Eddie, being like one of his first minutes, would. I know he'd probably frustrated he didn't get a chance to impact the game, but that doesn't matter. We didn't get a chance to impact the game as fans, but we still stood there and shouted for 90 minutes.
No, fair call. I just thought of something interesting with Aubameyang. Do you get the impression that like, how do I say this without, I'm twisting it all around, boys. So I don't mean in a nasty way, but do you think he doesn't give a fuck? Like, he's playing for the league. He can't play in Europa League. He just rolls up. He always seems to have a smile on his face. He has shots, and he just seems to do what he does. Do you think that we're not going to see the Aubameyang and wear his heart on the sleeve until next season?
No, not for me. I think that it's what he does. He plays with a smile on his face. He doesn't, in general, he's not involved in a lot of the game, but he's dangerous when he is involved. That's what he does. It's his style of play, and I've mentioned that a million times before, that there'll be games where you'll think, he's been awful, but he'll score because he is always dangerous when he is involved. So no, I don't think we can look anything into that he's playing a bit happy and whatnot. I think that's just what he does.
Okay. No, I didn't mean it in a bad way, and I didn't mean like he doesn't give a fuck, but just like he hasn't got nothing to play for was probably what I meant to come across.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from, but the guy's a natural born goal scorer, and also when you're no disrespect to the German league, but when you do really well there, people still don't consider you in the top bracket of players unless you've done it somewhere else. So even like you often hear people say about Lewandowski, they'll go, yeah, he's good, but could he do it elsewhere? And Toni Kroos was never seen as the player he is until he went to Real Madrid and done it. Robin gets away with it because he'd done it elsewhere previously. He was very good at Chelsea. So for me, I think Aubameyang will still feel like he has to prove himself in a way. So he'll want as many goals as he gets. And I think if you're not fully fired up, you don't. I mean, what's he got now? 6 in 8, 6 in 9, which is still an unbelievable record, really, considering he's coming to a new league.
Yeah.
And I don't think you get that if you're a bit half-assed or just not really motivated.
I think next season we might see him take on a different role as such, more of a I'm the gun man here, maybe, or do you think it'll just be the same as what he's doing now?
I don't know. He's really seemed to be trying to be a team player. Look, for me, I think he should be taking the role of a top dog, especially central, like as a striker. But if the manager's asking him to play out left and not be that poacher or the predator that he is, then he's doing that job for the team. If I was him, I wouldn't be particularly happy about it. But I mean,
there was one chance I noticed, and I think it happened again last week as well, where he seems to pass to Aubameyang, where I think to myself, geez, could you have hit that yourself?
To Lacazette, you mean?
Sorry, Lacazette. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I know you want to mean. It was right in front of me at the second half, and the angle was tight. And if the pass would have come off, I think we end up getting a corner from it. But yeah, I mean, I think the shot may have been the better option, but you don't know, and I don't know if that's naturally what he would have done or what the reason is for that. But I know exactly what you mean, and maybe sometimes he could be a bit more trigger happy.
Okay. Schwinn, why can't we win away from home, mate? What's the fucking recipe? What's the ingredient we're missing to the recipe?
It's a very, very tough question, and I don't think there's a concrete answer I can give you. I don't even think our boss has the answer right now, because it's such a. I mean, we spoke about this a little on our previous podcast, but it's such a wide category of games, and it's restricted to the Premier League because we've been comparatively we've been better away from home in Europe. So it's a tough one to nail your hands on and really give you a definitive answer. But from my amateur point of view, it has to be tactics. And time and again, Arsene has set up his team to play football the way he wants them to. But I think football has changed, where unless you have a very concrete philosophy that is giving you results week in, week out, you have to tailor your team. Not just the formation and the responsibilities on the field, but even your squad, the lineup you pick, based on the opposition you're going to play. And we fail to do that because we are always going for a particular set of 11 players that constitute for our best 11 players. And round pegs and square holes has been a theme throughout this season, and I don't think Arsenal is going to switch away from that anytime soon. For the sake of the Europa League, I hope we do, and I hope we're able to change our tactics when required. But I mean, I wouldn't put my money on that.
You got any ideas, Tony?
No, I mean, I think the last few games you can kind of look at it a little bit differently in that we haven't really played a full strength team because our mind's been elsewhere, or we've got half an eye on something else. But that doesn't excuse the rest of the season, and so I can't really answer that. I can speak about this game in isolation and say if we played a full team, I would have expected us to win. When that lineup came out, I wasn't confident of winning anyway, to be honest. So I think you can put maybe this one down to focus being elsewhere, but in the whole, I can't offer an explanation.
Okay. So interesting.
Since we were on this, Tez, Tony, do you want to throw out that trivia question you threw at us yesterday for our listeners and see if they can come up with the right answer for that?
Yeah, I mean, so I was going to do it at the end, but we're on the topic. Some of you may have seen this on Twitter, so if you have, don't just jump in with the answer instantly and ruin it for everyone else. But when was the last time, and who is it against, that we won an away game in which Alexis Sanchez didn't score in the league? So obviously, I know we won in Milan a couple of weeks ago, but it was in the Europa League. So in the league, in the Premier League, the last game Arsenal won when Alexis Sanchez wasn't on the score sheet. When was it, and who was it against?
Okay, so you can send that through to us at Twitter on @clockend_talk. Now, I want to get on to, obviously, our next opponent. You boys touched on it a little bit last week, so I don't want to get hung on it too much. But after this loss, obviously, we're playing Atletico Madrid. We did rest some players. Obviously, we're going to go into this fixture with a full team squad, full squad of first team players. What, are you confident, Tony?
It's 10 days away, and 10 days is a hell of a long time in football. I'm not confident over the two legs. I just don't think they don't concede many goals, and we do. If you look, I think they've now played 32 league games and conceded 15 or 16 goals, which is a joke, really. And this is the reason I would prefer them over one leg, over a single one-off tie than two legs. So I'm not confident. I'm not saying we can't win. I'm not saying we're out. I'm just saying I don't think we're favourites. And if someone said to me, you have to put money on one of the teams to go through, my money would be on Atletico Madrid.
Okay. Schwinn?
First off, Diego Costa has been declared fit, and it seems like he will make the first leg as well, which initially he was going to be a doubt. But we've had this discussion a bit before, and I am slowly confident because we don't have to win a particular game. Aggregate score is something we can bank upon, and we've seen in Europe, especially in the last couple of games, that we've been able to score. CSK away was, of course, a tough one for us to swallow, but against them at home we were very good, and against Milan we were pretty convincing as well. So I think with the right players, we have the ability to score. I agree that it's going to be a little difficult for us to find the back of the net quite a whole lot of times, but if we can do it a couple of times, and more so during the away leg, I think that's going to benefit us quite a bit. So it gives me a bit of solace that we don't have to win the one game out and out. So let's hope the aggregate score helps us. And let's hope that Henrik Mkhitaryan is able to feature, because he was someone who took a lot of load on himself and helped some of that attacking creativity. So I think he'd be pretty crucial for the second leg, I think.
Okay, well, we'll touch on that when we get a bit closer to it. But I just thought, after what your gut feelings were after that loss. So, well, like you say, 10 days is a long time in football. Okay, boys, so during the week, the EPL, English Premier League clubs, voted no to the VAR. We've had a few of our followers come through. So Glenn Baxter on pro-VAR. People need to remember that it is for clear and obvious mistakes. so it won't be a 50-50 calls. Is major errors like Lampard's goal versus Germany in 2010. Guna Dom says VAR wouldn't have helped us get points away from home. So surely Wenger can't claim that for the reason. Chris says we have a VAR in the A-League in Australia and it causes too many problems, too many stoppages. Shiva VAR is a must have in football. It helps a lot when referees can't or haven't seen something. The cameras do the job in a much better way. Of football bring in new things as we move ahead in time. So basically, yeah, it is the future, he's saying. Azim, he's saying a bit the same. He's anti-VAR. They said it would be only for clear, obvious areas. However, many times this season they've used it for the tight calls, something I'm not for. It should only be used for clear and obvious mistakes, something they said themselves. And then Azim also says, I think VAR is needed. However, the way it's been used so far, it's not adequate. Now, we ran a poll on this, and the poll was 54% of people said yes, 17% said undecided, 29% said no, and that was a total of 550-odd votes. Tony, so what's your take on it, mate, VAR?
Firstly, I'm not surprised that it's been rejected for next year, just because it's been horrible when we use it. I do agree with quite a few of the comments that it is the future. It will be coming in at some point, and it has to come in. But the way, if you consider this season's cup competitions as an audition for VAR, it's failed the audition. It's been an absolute shambles. It's not been used correctly. I do think the clear and obvious is misleading a lot of people, because one of their commenters, I didn't catch his name, said, "Oh, they've used it for marginal calls," and I can only assume he's talking about offside. And offside is always clear and obvious. So people are going, "Oh, it says clear and obvious, but he was only offside by a toe." But that's it. In a factual decision, with your offside, you're either onside or not. You're onside or offside. So even if it's only by a toe, the fact is you're offside. So it is a clear error if someone's on. Whereas a foul, it's a bit more subjective. Offside is not subjective. So I think people have got a bit confused and it's bad wording on UEFA or FIFA or the Premier League's part or the FA's part by saying clear and obvious. But when people are talking about marginal calls and saying, "Oh, it wasn't a marginal call," I mean, it was a marginal call. It wasn't clear and obvious. I think they've misunderstood when it comes to offside, that where it's factual, you're either onside or offside, that it is clear and obvious. Even if it's only a toe, it's clear and obvious that you're offside because your toe is offside. In terms of fouls and decisions, I don't think it's been... I can't remember too many times where I think it's been clearly wrong. I didn't watch the England-Italy game, which I know a lot of people moaned about the penalty that Italy got. I didn't watch it. So in terms of fouls, I can't remember too many times. It's just the amount of times it's taken. And I remember the Liverpool West Brom game in the FA Cup. It seemed like they were going to VAR every 2 seconds. And I remember tweeting at the time that I think we missed out on about 8 minutes of playing time in the first half because they spent 12 minutes on VAR but only added on 4 minutes or something along them lines. So there is kinks to be ironed out, and I'm glad they rejected it for next year. But I think it will and has to come in at some point. Also, in response to Glenn saying about clear and obvious, and he mentioned Lampard's goal against Germany, but that was sorted 5 years ago by goal line technology. That's nothing to do with VAR. So again, I think people have slightly misunderstood what VAR's about, and as I said, the wording hasn't helped. But I think it will be good in time, but at the moment, it's just not ready.
Okay, Schwinn?
Yeah, I'm in complete accordance with Tony. I think a lot of refs have used it as a backup when they've been unsure, and especially with some of the penalty decisions we've seen recently, I think the laws regarding penalties are unclear. So even if you give a referee 10, 15 more angles, they still are undecided. And even fans, I mean, we can find people who will disagree with us on certain decisions given away. Of course, the Harry Kane instance at Anfield comes to mind right away, where you will find people on both sides of the fence. So it's not about assisting the referees when the laws are almost confusing and vague. It has to be that part has to be fixed first, and then we should think about smart solutions. I think it's inevitable, as Tony said, but before we do that, we have to make things clear for the refs, because at the end of the day, they're the ones using this technology, and if the rules are not clear in their minds, then it doesn't help the game or the fans.
You got splinters on your ass still, or what?
No, I mean, I'm glad that it's definitely been rejected. I mean, good fucking riddance, because as Tony said, that one game, we lost about 8 minutes of game time, and that's just the one game we're talking about. There was another game at Wembley. I forget who it was. I want to say it was one of the Tottenham games where they had to play a second leg in the FA Cup, which was, again, quite shambolic when it came to the VAR. I think it was Stuart Atwell who was handling the system that day. So it's... That's right. That's what it was. So if anyone remembers that game, again, that was quite disgraceful, I would say, and it just kills the game. I think fans will warm up to it. If there is some delay in decision making, but if the result of the decision making is correct, I think fans will get on board. But when you still have these divisive decisions being made, I don't think fans will get behind that.
Yeah, look, I agree with Chris, because we've had it in the A-League for this season, so it causes way too many stoppages, and it's still down to human error. You're still relying on some bloke upstairs to go yay or nay, but he has a bit more time to look at it, and he has 15 to 20 cameras. I think people will see what happens in the World Cup, and we'll see how many decisions actually get wrong or right in the World Cup. So,
can I just butt in quickly? One thing I will say is one of the guys that commented, I don't know who it was, said, it wouldn't have made Arsenal gain more away points, so Wenger can't use that as an excuse. And Wenger hasn't used that excuse, but the fact remains it absolutely would have made us get more away points. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting correct decisions. I just don't think at this time that device or that system is ready to give us that. But saying something like it wouldn't have given us more away points is just absolutely untrue.
Yeah, that was Gurner Dom. So yeah, look, I think I just suggest have a look at it when it comes to World Cup, and people will probably be thinking, oh shit, this isn't what we need. I don't know what the answer is, boys. I don't know. But how they get it right, because unless it's a bloody robot sitting up there going, well, that's offside, that's whatever it is, then they're going to get it 100% right. I don't think they ever will get it 100% right, and that's I personally like just the bloke on the field. He makes the decisions. Some it goes against you, some it doesn't go against you. There was a penalty in the Champions League, and I felt really sorry. Juventus. I felt really sorry for Juventus, but I think I said to you guys, I think it was a penalty. I'm pretty sure, I would have said a penalty, but I looked at it later and I went, and I said it here on the Twitter, and I said, 50-50 chance, and you're looking at it, it could have went either way, and that's the referee, but that's human error, and you're still going to get that upstairs with a bloke looking at cameras and whatnot. So anyway, okay. Anything else to add on that, or move on?
Move on.
Indeed.
We got an interesting question, and I'm just looking. I really apologise for who it was. Basically, he said it might have come through you, Schwinn, on the DM.
Aaron Sandhu, I believe his name is.
Okay, so changes for next season, boys. He basically buy 3 players and sell 3 players, but be realistic. One of our followers has said TJB_1998. He would sell Mustafi, Cech, and Bellerin, and buy Manalis, Lino, and Minu. Got me on that one.
Oh, PSG.
I think it's Thomas Meunier.
Meunier, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, Tony, what would you do?
I find it quite hard to argue with the players he said sell. I think that Mustafi I've never overly been happy with. The problem is, I think a lot of people would say we need 2 starting centre-backs even if he stays. So if he goes, then you're looking at 3 centre-backs. And if I gave you a list of 3 centre-backs now for them 3 potential players, you'd go, oh, what about the other issues? But Mustafi, I agree with Bellerin just because looking at it realistically, we need funds to buy players. So if, for example, someone said, I would sell Iwobi, Voldemort, and I don't know, Rob Holding, just to put a name on it, that would generate about £5 million, maybe 10. So then you're looking at 3 players to come in, and the budget doesn't work out. So I'll put Bellerin in that list because I think he'd demand quite a high transfer fee, which then allows you to reinvest. In regards to the third, so I'd be Mustafi, Bellerin, and in regards to the third one, it would probably be Alex Iwobi, just because I don't see a long-term future for him at Arsenal. I don't see the areas he can. I don't see the base ability that he can build upon to ever make himself good enough for Arsenal. So they would be my 3. In terms of ins, I think a keeper is a priority. Not the main priority, but I think if I had to improve 3 positions, I think a keeper would be one of them. And again, looking at budgets, I'd probably go with Timo Horn. There is better out there, but again, we've got the question also to be realistic. So I'd probably go Timo Horn. Centre back, probably Manolas, he's available. Either him or, again, if you're looking at money, you'd probably go Stefan de Vrij, who's on a free. But I think Manolas is better, so I'd probably go for him. And then I think we're crying out for a winger. Otherwise, we're just going to end up playing Aubameyang there forever because he's quick. It doesn't really matter what side, because then the other side, Mickey's going to play and Rome. So I don't care if it's a left or right winger, but we need one of them. I saw today, and I can't see it happening, but I think it'd be in a dream signing, but also fit in with the budget, is Lorenzo Insigne. I'm a big fan, or to be fair, I've seen us linked with Dries Mertens, who I know has played up front a lot, but is equally as adept as a winger. I'd be a big fan of either of them two. Probably more realistic is a Malcolm type player. But if it was my choice, I would go with Insigne.
Okay. Who are you taking again? Czech, Bellerin, and Iwobi.
No, Mustafi, Bellerin.
Mustafi, Bellerin, Iwobi. Okay. Tony? Schwinn, sorry?
For me, the outs would be Ospina, Mustafi, and Chambers. I want to agree with Aaron, who actually put in a 4th name in there, so I'll probably do something similar. Timo Horn, of course, keeping budgetary restrictions in mind, as Tony said, is someone I would like to bring in, and having Czech around would also be nice, so that you can learn the league a little bit from him. As for the center backs, I would like to bring in 2. One would be Alderweireld, and the other would be Matthias de Ligt from Ajax. There's rumors that his release clause is about 50 million. I don't know how true that is, so maybe it doesn't fit in with the realistic angle there. But I don't. Let's assume for now that it's not the truth. And as Tony said, a natural winger is a priority because we haven't replaced Theo Walcott, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, and come to think of it, Danny Welbeck is probably the only true winger we have. And considering previous links, my money would be on Malcolm if I had to predict.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball. So I'm selling Ramsey, Mustafi, and Ospina because I need Ramsey to fund my goalkeeper in Oblak. I'm hoping I could get Martial from Manchester United, and I've thrown in because as much as I really rate Manolas from Roma, but I also follow Roma, so you can't have him. So I'm going to go Johnny Evans because I think we'll get him cheap.
Oh, you haven't followed suit at all. You just thrown the word realistic out of the tweet, haven't you?
How? Yeah, that's realistic.
Well, do you really think we're going to go for an 80 million goalkeeper, especially with PSG nibbling at our heels, if rumors are to be believed?
If we sell Ramsey, we will. There's your money to buy him.
Well, I hope you're true, my friend, because if I had to guess, that wouldn't be where my money is. But let's hope you're true then in that case.
Hey, that was realistic. I fucking thought of that hard too, you prick. Get off the fence, fucker.
When have I been on the fence today? Even someone like Martial, he's going to cost us what, 50 million? That is if United want to entertain us. You're looking at a 200 million spending spree there.
I wonder how much. I wonder how much. I did see the rumours that he's not happy there. I wonder how true they are. Tony?
Seems to be pretty true. I think Juventus are in discussions too, right, Tony?
I mean, I can only look from the outside and say he's not getting the minutes he wants. He's at an age now where he's playing less than he did 2 years ago. And I'm not saying he's old, but he's only getting older. And you'd expect at his age to be a first-team player by now. And he's also probably worrying about the World Cup because at the moment he's not playing enough to be probably considered for the World Cup, considering the other players they have to select from in Lamar, Mbappe, Dembele. I mean, the Griezmann, the list goes on and on. He may get in their squad, but he's making it hard. Well, not he's making it hard for himself. Man United are making it hard for him to stake a claim. So I think looking from the outside, he probably is unhappy. How far he'll push that, I don't know. How much United will entertain any bids from him, again, I don't know.
I just done a quick maths on mine. I reckon, you pick up Evans for 15?
Free.
Oh, free, that's right. His goes for free.
If they go down.
Yeah, so get fucked, Schwinn. So
For fuck's sake. That's not the major chunk of your expenditure, though, is it?
So I've got a freebie in there. I've got Oblak. Yeah, we'll pick him up for about 65, 70.
No, his release clause is 80, but I meant 3 million, not free for Johnny Evans. But Oblak would be 80 plus, and I agree with Schwinn that Martial would probably be in the 50 bracket, consider they paid that for him, and football's gone crazy since. So even if he was to be available, so I think you're still looking at 133 million being conservative, and Ramsey's only got a year left on his contract. So I'd be surprised if we got 50 for him, in all honesty. Not that I don't rate him, but he's got a year left.
So 50 for Ramsey, probably fucking hell, no can't he give us 5 million for Mustafi. Okay.
Well, keeping in mind, your starting centre-backs then would be a half-fit Koscielny and Johnny Evans. So that's how you would be starting your season then.
Fucking hell, I didn't think about it real hard, did I? I just wanted to get Oblak in there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do some questions, boys. I'll fucking have to think harder than that now. Janus says, Tony, what do you guys think is the reason why our players do not come over to salute the fans? Well, we did discuss this earlier. So we will skip that, sorry. What does Mustafi have to do to get dropped? Big fan of the podcast. Thanks. Brad's at Original Brad's with a Z.
It's difficult because you always want to play at least one senior centre-back. And I'm sure had we played Chambers and Holding at centre-back yesterday and lost, and the result was exactly the same, he would have got hammered for that. So it is difficult because Koscielny's not going to play every week. So Mustafi seems to be the senior centre-back that's going to play. I mean, the stark reality is I'm not counting Mertesacker, so we only have 2 senior centre-backs. The issue is with Mustafi as well, is he's very Jekyll and Hyde. He's been amazing in some games this season, and he's been utter garbage in others. I can't remember who it was against, but early on in the season I criticised him, and then he had a good game against Tottenham at home, and everyone came on and criticised me for criticising him. So it's a tough one because he could be outstanding and mark Costa or Griezmann out of the game next Thursday, and people will be going, oh yeah, that's why he starts. And then he could go and play, we've got Man United in between, but he could go and play against a team that aren't as good. He could go away to Huddersfield or away to Leicester or whoever else we've got left at home to Burnley and be absolutely awful. So it's a difficult one because you don't know what you're going to get.
No, he's not consistent. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Schwinn's been in here answering fucking questions and talking questions and confused the man now.
What are you on about? I just thanked him for being nice and saying big fan of the podcast. It's not my mistake you haven't read through these.
Oh no, you're talking. You're having a yarn to Aaron. Fucking have a go, you get off. Okay. Texas Gooner, we finally saw Lacazette Aubameyang start together. However, we deployed the same type of setup. We pushed Aubameyang out wide. Do you feel we could have accommodated the two with the players at their disposal against Newcastle to play them as two out-and-out strikers? Schwinn.
And yeah, we definitely should have. I think he's exactly right because as we spoke about earlier, we didn't tailor the team, the setup to the strength of our 11, and that's sort of what got us an emptied midfield, an inexperienced midfield, especially the creative bit, and that sort of brings home your point, Tez, that we started them off service. They had to create a lot on their own, and on a day where it was only Aubameyang and Lacazette trying to make things happen, they just couldn't make things tick. So with Iwobi shunned to the right, I think there was a lot of disjointedness in our attack, if that's a word, and we suffered because of that. So I think Texas Gunner is exactly right. We should have played the way that suited them.
And just quickly, Aaron Sandha, he was the one who asked us that 3 in 3 out question. He's actually put Heza here as well. And that's what you were commenting on, Schwinn. So he's gone Kolasinac, Mustafi, Chambers out, and he's hoping to get about 40 million for them. But he's confused the fuck out of me because he's gone players in Sacco from West Ham. Yeah, and Manalis, Mustafi swap he's hoping. Geez, that's a big call. Oh, he's added 4 here, cheeky bastard. Fucking asked us 3 and he's fucking whacked in 4.
Yeah, I think he actually even changed Sacco because I think Tony clarified with him he didn't mean Sacco, he meant someone else from West Ham.
Yeah, okay, that's what's showing me because then I was just reading through the thread. So this is riveting podcasting because I'm actually reading the tweets through the thread, which I should have done before, and he's a bit confused. So anyways, yeah, okay, righto. Well, you can have a look at that on there. Tony.
Yes.
Texas Gooner, do you feel that would have been a good idea or bad idea? Could have been tried a 4-4-1-1 type setup, given their contrasting styles. I felt we could have tried something different.
Yeah, I mean, I commented, I think it was last week on here, that I would like to see Lacazette as a false 10 to invent a position. So because he does like to naturally drop deep, but he is also a striker. I don't know if that's how Texas Schooner would see it as a 4-4-1-1. I wouldn't go 4-4-1-1 because I don't think we have the discipline. I mean, if you look at the team we played with the players that played, I don't know who would go on the wings. You'd put Iwobi on one side, and I mean, with that team, it'd be ended up putting Willock on a wing. I know you could have changed it to put Welbeck in, but I don't think either of them are wingers in a 4 because they're too attacking and not good enough going backwards. So to get them in, I think we could have stayed 4-2-3-1, which is a system all the players know, but played Lacazette as the 10, as I said, and slightly tweak it to be more like a false 10.
Yeah, well, Darren Dupree, he says, I don't see it working which one plays the low one target type. Lacazette could trap a ball today and kind of struggle there in combining. It's either 4-4-2 diamond or 3-5-2, he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, I read this and I don't necessarily agree. I know what he's getting at, that none of them are really great at holding the ball up because due to physicality, but you don't have to be. There's more than one way to break that down. I mean, Aubameyang is very good running channels and very quick. So similar to what Newcastle done. Look, they started Dwight Gale up front, who I think is no more than 5'7", probably only weighs around 11 stone. So you could say, oh, they struggled to hold the ball up. They didn't. They just kicked it in behind, and he was quicker than our defenders, and maybe not even quicker, just sharper. So you don't. I mean, it's a bit of a fallacy that to be a target man, you have to be a big, strapping 6'5", strong as an ox player. You can be a target to run onto the long balls, or a target to bounce off people's feet. There's many different ways to do that job. So I don't necessarily agree, although I understand what he's on about.
I presume this is going on yesterday's lineup. Just if you did run a 3-5-2, using the players that were available yesterday, who would you run your five in?
Oh well, I mean, with what was available, you'd have to go as a five. It's the wing backs that are tricky because Kolasinac would have to come in. I'm assuming Monreal would probably stay as one of the three with Holding and Mustafi, or Chambers and Mustafi. But I think Maitland-Niles isn't 90 minutes fit, so Chambers would have had to play right wing back, which is even more disastrous than him playing right back. It would have been Kolasinac and Chambers as wing backs. Yeah. The middle three would have been El Neni and Xhaka with one of Iwobi and Willock, and then obviously the top two would have been Lacazette and Aubameyang.
Still not much better than what we rolled out anyway.
Yeah, I think, look, we just want, and I'm included in this, and a lot of time on here I criticise other fans' opinions, but we just want to, as a fan base, want to see them two up front together. So we're maybe doing the same as Wenger. I feel at the moment he's putting square pegs in round holes, and it doesn't really suit us. But I think as a fan base, and myself included, are doing that. We're trying to put square pegs in round holes just to get them two up front together. So we're probably doing the same thing that Wenger is. The issue is that we're losing, so we can criticise Wenger for it and say our plan's right. And until it happens, and it is either successful or not, we won't know if what we're saying is good. But we know what Wenger's doing isn't good because we keep losing.
I'm not going to complain too much, but at the end of the day, he was the one who bought him, or he was the one who had the say to buy him with a plan in mind. If you don't know what that plan is, why go and purchase him? But I'm not.
It might have been his plan to. It might have been his plan to play Aubameyang on the left, though.
Maybe could have been. Yeah.
I mean, and also it wasn't strictly his. Aubameyang wasn't his signing. Don't get me wrong. You wouldn't have turned him down. The guy's either world class or virgin on it. But
I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong. But I just sense there is no plan. But if it was, could have been on the left, I suppose. I don't know. We'll never know.
Very true.
Okay. I'll stick with you, Tony, because MAA Gunner says, what happens to Santi in the summer? Does he retire or does he wait to hopefully regain fitness and sign for the club?
I would imagine he obviously will not be offered a new contract, but they will let him stay and continue his rehabilitation at us. And come a time, if he does get near fit, he will then, or not near fit and fit enough to play. If that ever does happen, then he will sign a contract at that point, is what I would imagine will happen. By all accounts, his family are very happy in London. Even when he's been going abroad back to Spain for surgery, his family have all stayed here. His son, who I believe is probably about between 8 and 10 years old now, I could be completely wrong, is in the Arsenal academy. So I think he's sort of happy with life in London. So what I would imagine would happen is he'll stay at Arsenal, but on a non-contract basis, and continue his fight to get back fit. And if that does ever happen, then he will re-sign for the club.
How does he? So he's not getting paid when he next. So how's he getting an income?
He doesn't. But the same applies if he retires. The same that no one's going to offer him a contract at this stage, even. Because forget his ability. At the moment, he has no ability because he can't play football.
Can't play, yeah.
So no one. He's out of contract as of June the 1st. There is absolutely no one that will offer him a contract. So and the thing is, a medical. It's actually. I know it sounds stupid, but Arsenal. If Arsenal do let him carry on and rehabilitate and take himself at Arsenal, that's a good gesture from them because that stuff costs money. And if Arsenal don't let him do that, then he'll have to pay for that off his own back, which I'm sure he has the money to do, but. I think Arsenal will continue to help him with his rehabilitation. But in terms of getting an income, he's not going to get an income regardless. If he leaves Arsenal, if he retires, if he stays at Arsenal, no one's going to pay him.
No, I was more thinking if he took a role in the media or something, that was all.
But he could do both.
Yeah. Sad, isn't it? Very sad.
It is very sad, and he always comes across as a very likeable man. I mean, it is sad for anyone, but I think if it was someone who wasn't so well loved, I don't know, I don't want to put a name on it, then we probably wouldn't feel as sad or as upset about it. But as we know, he always played it with a smile on his face. He was always well received, never really criticised. And he said he just comes across as a nice, humble man. So it is a shame, yeah.
Okay, Schwinn, Glenn says, Glenn Baxter, Glenn at Glenn 1980. 0 points in 2018. When did it get this bad? What needs to happen for this to change next season? I'm going with the assumption Wenger is still manager.
Yeah, I think Glenn meant 0 points away from home in 2018. And I mean, assuming that Wenger is still the manager, I think the only solution is to get better players, because he's pretty concrete in his ways and it doesn't seem like he's going to change. So the only way we can help the players is by reinforcing the squad with quality, so that we will still concede. I don't think there's any two ways about that. But we have to rely on outscoring opponents. And at the moment, that will only happen if you're able to strengthen our squad and make it a little bit deeper.
Okay. Tony, would the MAA Gunner says, would these defenders be able to defend properly under another manager like Allegri?
I think we would concede less goals because we would be better set up to defend, which I've said. I think I said this on our very first podcast, that we're just not set up to defend, and nothing's changed, as we've all seen. I don't think, and people would disagree with this just because they want Wenger out so much, but I don't think another manager comes in and makes Mustafi Mr. Consistent. I think he could be managed by God and he would still do some of the dumb shit he currently does. So I think we would concede less goals, but I don't think they would become necessarily a lot better players, and I think that a lot of the individual errors would still be there, although there would be less individual errors because they wouldn't have to do as much work because they'd be better protected by the rest of the team. Similarly, in the same, like Czech, I think I saw a stat the other day and I can't remember exactly, but Czech has made more errors leading to goals than anyone else in the league by a long distance, maybe even double who's second. A new manager coming in isn't particularly going to change that. He may shave 1 or 2, but he's not going to cut it in half. That number could naturally be cut in half by Czech just stop making errors. I know it's not a choice, but these things happen. And if that does happen, people go, see, a new manager's come in and he's changed that. But Wenger's not putting Czech in a position to make errors. Like some of the errors he's made, that you can't blame Wenger for that. So I think we'd be tighter as a defence and we would make less individual errors, but the individual errors would still be there.
The problem I see, though, is Arsenal, compare to the other top 5 teams, right, above us on the ladder. Is it fair to say that we are where we should be on the ladder with the team that we have?
I've said this for a while. When people always blame Wenger for everything, and I know I've just sounded quite positive for the last 2 minutes talking about Wenger, but I don't want Wenger to be our manager, and any regular listener will know that. But I believe we have the 6th best squad in the league, and we are 6th. So I don't think it's crazy that we're 6th. Of course I don't want to be here. Of course I want to be challenging for the title, or failing that I want to be in the top 4. But when I look at the teams above us, I think each and every one of them is better than us. So, I mean,
they've just got better players. Like they just, you look at our players. Like I don't want to. I hate shitting on our players. Don't you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say, oh fuck, we got shit players, but we haven't got the quality of players that other teams have, and them teams above us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you, and I don't like doing them, but if you done a half and like you selected a team from you had to select 11 players from Arsenal, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, blah, blah, blah. I don't think in any one of them, against any one of them clubs, we would come out with 6 or like the majority of the players. I think probably 2 or 3 in most of them. Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't tell the whole story. And obviously a journalist got in a lot of shit for doing this when we played Tottenham at home. So I'm not going to go completely into it. But I just think other teams have better players than us. And then that's when you do need good tactics and good systems to counteract that, and that's what we're lacking. But it's not like Wenger's taking the second best group of players in the league and we're sitting in 6th. He has the 6th best group of players and we're sitting in 6th.
I think, this is why we need Oblak. We need to whack him in that team somewhere. Fuck, if you're going to have a shit defence, at least have a decent keeper.
He'd be overworked.
He would be. He'd be fucking flat out. He'd go from $80 million. He'd come to Arsenal. He'd fucking value to drop the fucking 5. Clean sheet would be gone. Okay, where are we up to? Vish, he asked a couple of questions, and so we touched on it earlier. Tony, why didn't we play the young Greek guy against Newcastle? Yes, I realise both inexperienced. Mustafi defending is schoolboy at times. We have nothing to really play for in the league anyway, he says. He also goes on to say, can we end this season now, play the fucking academy team in the Premier League matches, so our first term be rested and destroyed by Atletico? So, Vishy's probably like me and most Arsenal fans. We're fucking just disappointed, pissed off, angry, emotional. That's all I can say, Schwinn.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Mustafi as a squad player because, as we've spoken about, he's bang average most of the time, and his blunders are very, very bad for us, and they lead to bad consequences. I feel if there's some more competition that we can put in and that keeps him on his toes, he might pull up his socks and be a little more consistent and is a little more aggressive when it comes to trying to become better and improving. But I think he has a lot of solidity in terms of his position. He knows he's going to be picked up for the big games and only be rested occasionally. But all in all, I don't think there's a lot we can do about Mustafi at the moment, and certainly not with the squad.
So after you said that, I'm going to hit you with this one. Schwinn MAA Gunner says, if you were to sell one player in the season, who would it be? I mean, probably in the off-season. Who would it be?
Well, if I had to predict someone being sold, I would imagine it's Ospina. I think Ospina and us are definitely going to part ways this summer. But if he's asking who I would sell, I would sell. Yeah, if that's the question, I would definitely sell Mustafi and reinforce our backline with 2 defenders, as I mentioned earlier.
Tony?
Again, just thinking financially, it'd probably be Bellerin, because I could think you could get someone at a similar level to him for not a crazy amount of money and then spend more on a centre-back, whereas we're not going to get the money back we paid for Mustafi. I think we'd be lucky to get between 20 and 25, which then may get one defender, so you're replacing him. Whereas if we sold Bellerin, I think you could probably get a decent centre-back and a decent right-back for the money you'd bring in.
Okay. I don't know who I'd sell. I've got to get Oblak there somehow, so I'm never going to have enough
Chaka?
money. No fucking way. I'd be worth 100 million.
Would you sell Aaron Ramsey over Granit Xhaka?
I only. You fucking put me
Let's assume that both of them had a 3-year contract from now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand you wanting to sell Ramsey if he doesn't want to re-sign. It obviously makes sense. But let's assume they had 3 years left on their contract each.
I probably would sell Ramsey because I don't know how I'd fit Jack and Ramsey in the same side. So I've got to sell one of them, and I'm saying Jack will stay, so I've got to sell Ramsey.
Well turned around, my friend. You saved yourself there almost in a way.
Just to let any of the audience or our listeners know, if you need the drugs that Tez is taking, please DM him because he is having stuff of superior quality, clearly.
Add me to the list as well. I'll take some of that stuff.
Okay. Tony, what would you do? Fuck you.
I answered. Oh, what? If I had to sell one of Xhaka or Ramsey?
Yeah.
Xhaka. I don't have to think. I rate Xhaka, you know I do, but Ramsey is in a different bracket of player.
You're right. I'll give you that one. Okay. Anyway, let's wrap the podcast up. Thanks, boys. I'm going to go now.
Never to be seen again.
Okay. Adam May says, would anyone take Ryan Bertrand if Southampton go down, Tony?
Look, I like Bertrand, but I think it's a position we're okay in for now. Is he better than Nacho? Probably going forward, yes, but not as consistent and probably not as safe. Is he better than Kolasinac? Yes, but would I sign someone like that to come and sit on the bench when we've got such glaring problems elsewhere? No. So it's not that I don't rate Bertrand, but I wouldn't sign him.
Let's just stop and think here for a second. Southampton, West Brom, and who else are we going to say going to go down?
Stoke, hopefully.
Stoke. Would you pick anybody out of them three teams?
Look, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and relegation isn't like it used to be, where the value is massively dented unless a player completely forces his way out. So I don't think that, like, say Butland, I think he would improve us, but would I go and throw 40 million at him, which will probably be around the quoted asking price? No. Again, looking at Southampton, possibly Mario Lemina. I know we've looked at him before, but again, I don't know what price he would come at. I don't think he would be too expensive. So he is probably one of the only ones that I would go. I would probably be looking at. And I've mentioned it many times before. I really like Cedric Suarez, the Southampton right back. And again, I don't think he'd be too expensive. So I would probably be looking at Lemina and Suarez are the only two players from the three teams when you factor in value for money as well.
Is Butler, is he going to be your starting keeper in the World Cup?
I think Pickford will. For me, it wouldn't be. For me, it wouldn't be Pickford, but I'm not Gareth Southgate. I think Gareth Southgate will start Jordan Pickford.
And the only reason I ask is I do worry if he has a blinder of a World Cup and you guys actually do something, and on the back of Butler, his price will go through the roof.
Potentially, but I mean, it could be the case if they do go down. A lot of players, I think, will try and sort out their futures before they fly off to the World Cup, because logistically it's going to be a nightmare. So if they do go down, I wouldn't be surprised if his future's sorted before the World Cup, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. Schwinn, do you want to add that anything quickly there? Would you pick the guts at anyone out of them three teams, one?
I mean, just to give you an answer, I would probably go for Romeo from Southampton. I think he could provide some good cover for Granit Xhaka and do a job late on in games when we have to buckle down the hatches and protect a lead. But ideally, I probably wouldn't buy anyone from either of those three teams.
We definitely need a backup for Xhaka. Definitely.
Yeah, and
cover there.
And I think Lamina is someone who can slot into that job, but I see him more as someone who's like an Elneny, someone who's an engine, a more box to box. I don't know if he has a discipline. Could be because of his tender age. I think he's pretty young at the moment. I'm not even sure whether Southampton bought him or whether he's from on loan from Juventus. So of course there would be a price difference depending on that, if Juventus thinks there's something in there in that player. But of course he is a decent prospect, and I think his younger brother just signed with PSG as well, so there's some footballing blood in their family. But again, as I said, only if I had to give you a name would I choose one of Romeo, but probably none of them.
Fucking PSG, eh? How's their form? 8-2 over second place, Monaco. Okay. Gunnar Dom. Schwinn, he says, positives from Newcastle game. Aubameyang and Lacazette linked up well in the first half despite not much to work with. Reckon we'll see more of that, the link-up, not the weak midfield.
I mean, surely, I don't imagine us not playing Aubameyang and Lacazette long term. They're big assets for the club, and there's no way we're going to plant one of them onto the bench. As for positives, I don't really think they linked up that well. Of course, there were a couple of moments where things sparked, and of course we scored that one goal. But I don't think this was by any means a good show from both of them in terms of their chemistry. There's something there in the long term, but I think he's being a little too kind by calling it whatever the turn of phrase he used there.
Okay. Also, he says, has Iwobi now done enough to be ahead of Wilshere against Atletico?
Jesus Christ, no. Again, he hasn't been bad, but I think people I don't think people realize that he is not tidy on the ball, and he's not comfortable on the ball. As Tony mentioned very early on today, he takes too many touches of the ball. People who need to retain possession have to be more suave and have to slalom through players. Just because Jack is not in good form right now doesn't mean he can't turn a corner and step up when it comes to one of the big games. Let's not forget, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, that these players need an incentive to perform, and Atletico is going to be that stage that, albeit the Europa League, but it's going to be an event, it's going to be an affair, and the players are going to be buzzing. We need players like Jack and players who are confident in the ball, who've been at the bigger stages to perform, and we cannot throw in the young players like Alex Iwobi.
See, Guna Dom said, I've got to fucking put up with being told I'm on drugs. I would have thought the same, mate. Jack's been shit. Fuck him off. Nah, but I'm just joking. No, Iwobi, yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not. I agree with you, Shwin. I'd start Jack over Iwobi, definitely. I'm not even going to ask Tony's thoughts, but I will ask Tony this. Gurner Dom says, Tony, surely we need an even bigger clean out in the summer. Announce it now and new signings in before the World Cup to keep players fighting for places. Or is a new manager the only real answer to Arsenal Football Club taking away games seriously?
I mean, we don't not take away games seriously, for a start. We haven't been very good in them, but to say we don't take them seriously is probably derisory. In terms of, I just mentioned, I think a lot of business will be done before the World Cup if possible. So I agree in that sense. In terms of announcing stuff now, I'm not a fan of that. We've got, a huge game in 10 days. And I don't see any good from coming in doing anything now, even whether it's a player, I still believe we're pretty close to signing Max Meyer. And even if we did, I don't think now would be a good time to announce it. I'm assuming the question was based on the manager, and I think it would be a horrible idea, because if Wenger goes, it's not going to be of his own doing. So if they said now, you'll go, like, we're getting a new manager next season, they're basically telling him mid-season, by the way, we're sacking you, which again is an awful idea. So in answer to the question, I think a lot of business will hopefully be done before the World Cup, but I don't see any benefits of announcing anything now.
That question kind of contradicts itself, because if you sack your manager even after the World Cup, but then he's doing business before the World Cup, new manager comes in, he goes, oh, thanks, cunt. These are the players.
Well, that doesn't... I would have agreed with you 2 years ago, but that doesn't matter so much anymore, because as I've said before, we're leading away from a manager model into a head coach model, which is why I said Wenger didn't particularly sign Aubameyang. I'm not saying he didn't rate him, but he didn't go after him. I think a team probably led by Sven and a couple of others would have said, we believe he's available. Would you have him in the team? And they've said yes, and that's pretty much how the European model works. So the signings are largely not done by, I'm going to call him a head coach, because that's what whoever next person comes in will be a head coach, not a manager.
So it's going to similar like a baseball model, what they do over there.
Well, it's been in Europe. The head coach system's been in for years, but every time it's tried to come to England, it's never worked. I remember it happened at Newcastle. I think Kevin Keegan was a manager, and he was going mad. He used to go, I'll come into training one day, and there was a player I've never seen before, and he'd start moaning about it. But and then I think he ended up losing his job over it because he moaned about it too much. But in Europe and especially Italy, that's just been the dumb thing. I mean, at the club you follow, Roma, Monchi's come in, and that's his job, is to just basically deal with transfers. But in Italy, that's just been the way things work for as long as I can remember.
And it's worked well.
Well, I mean,
some it doesn't. But you only got to have a look.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue the strengths, the pluses and negatives all you want. I don't know if there's a correct answer, but I mean, it's not. It sounds strange to English fans when you say that's how it happens, because it doesn't happen over here. Like if you said to an Italian fan, "Oh, the manager does everything. We don't have a head coach. We have a similar job. We call him manager, and he does absolutely everything," they'd probably think you're crazy.
Okay, we are Arsenal. He's just echoing our thoughts pretty much. Chambers not a right back, simple as it is. How many good saves our goalie had, which you can remember? Yeah, that's a good point. No sense of urgency to kill the game, but it comes from manager Mr. Wenger. It's time to leave the sinking ship. We are Arsenal at Atomic. Got a heap of numbers there. Swin, pretty much echoing our thoughts, but I'll go to the goalie. When was the last time Czech made a good save that you can remember?
Wow. Off the top of my head,
I'll put you on the spot
obviously,
too,
yeah, and I'm obviously falling victim to my memory here. Clearly, it's not me or you who needs to answer this question. It's Tony who compensates for our lack of memory. But I think there have been instances that we've spoken about where he has been good. I think that the one that comes to mind, which is of course a while ago, was the Chelsea game where he made a couple of big saves against Morata. But I think even more recently, he has stepped up and he has done a good job. But as football fans, we usually remember the bad spots and are quick to forget the bright ones.
No, I couldn't agree more. I'll just push through those because there's a lot of questions here, boys.
Just quickly, your memory is awful. He made a world-class save literally on Thursday. They scored the rebound because the defenders couldn't be asked to do their job.
Yeah, see, I told you, you asked the wrong person, didn't you?
Oh, worry, mate, I didn't remember that either. So.
I was too fucked up.
We're both as bad. Well, he made yeah, right, I'll take your word for it. Red Falcrum. Tony, what is exactly the main factor behind Arsenal's away form? I'm not going to go on to that. Look, thanks for the question, but yeah, we don't know. We have no idea. Brad's asked again, why wasn't he sold when he wanted to leave in the summer, and we just keep Gabriel and buy another CB? He's talking about Mustafi's. Tony?
Yeah, purely because we couldn't get someone else in, and we couldn't get the money we wanted for Mustafi. We couldn't get someone else in, and Gabriel wasn't really trusted. And Gabriel's benefited a lot from not being here at the moment, because no one was calling out for him to be a first-team centre-back. He was often criticised during the last 2-3 years, however long he was at the club. Suddenly, since he's gone and the results haven't been good, he's become like, oh, he could have been the saviour. But no one was saying that at the time, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. But as I said, no one was like crazy disappointed when he went. No one was ever calling him to start every game in previous years. So he's just benefited from not being here, really. And in terms of Mustafi, we didn't get the money we wanted, and we couldn't get a replacement in.
Yeah, no, that's fair answer. I was just looking to see how he was travelling over there, but Gabriel, but off down, doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there anyway, really. Shree says, I have nothing to add, boys. Thanks, mate. But let's hope for a different Arsenal shows up against the very Atletico Madrid up the Arsenal. Look, Shree is he'll often contribute, so thank you, mate. And what we got? Prophet Guna. Once again, Schwinn, is Mustafi's time up? Should have went with Tony on that one, because you're a bit on Mustafi today, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll let Tony take it if he wants to.
Yeah, Tony?
Not for me, and not because I think he's brilliant. But as I said, if you could argue, and Schwinn will argue, that we need 2 centre-backs already. So if you let him go, who's arguably our only fit, consistently first-team centre-back, I don't mean consistent in levels of performance, I mean he's consistently fit. But if you let him go, that means you need to bring in 3 centre-backs. And as I said, he wouldn't command a big transfer fee. So you're looking at maybe 20, let's go mad and say we'd get 30 million for him, which we wouldn't, but I don't know, let's take some of Tez's drugs. So we get 30 million for him and we have to buy 3 centre-backs. I mean, you're living in a dream world.
Okay. That's all the questions I got, boys. However, hit us up at clockend_talk because somebody's got to know out there, how do we get Oblak into my team? So tell me how you can get Oblak in my team and who do we sell? So we've got to sell 3 players and you've got to bring 3 in. Let us know your thoughts at clockend_talk. You boys got anything else to add?
Nope.
No, I think we're all set.
I won't be on the podcast on Friday after Monday, isn't it? Monday after the West Ham game. Yep, after the West Ham game. That'll be Tony and Schwinn. We might have another guest come in, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah, boys, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers.
And thank you for listening, thank you for downloading, and thank you for following us at Clock End Talk. Don't forget to retweet Charlie Shank's art and give him a follow, Char Shanksy. I think that's it, Tony.
Yep.
And hit us up on the vote for the Football Blog Awards. Thank you once again, and see you later.